Record of Ragnarok, also known as Shuumatsu no Valkyrie, is a spring 2021 anime that was released as a Netflix original. It's animated by Graphinica, which is known for doing Juni Taisen and the last 3 episodes of Hellsing Ultimate, and that's about it. If you're like most people, the words Netflix original probably strike fear into your heart, and I've seen a lot of manga readers say this show is terrible, but I decided to give it a fair shot as an anime only. Since most discussions of Record of Ragnarok are doing nothing but bashing it, I'm actually going to lead with what I think are its positive qualities before I talk about the ways it's dropped the ball. This review will be spoiler-free. The first thing I like about Record of Ragnarok is that the concept is pretty engaging. All the gods from all the pantheons decide they want to wipe out humanity, except for a half-human Valkyrie who objects and proposes a tournament instead. 13 gods will fight 13 humans, and if the humans can get 7 victories, they get to live another 1,000 years, otherwise they get destroyed. Essentially, the show is a giant tournament arc. But what sets this tournament apart is not the fights, but the uniqueness of the fighters. Not only are there lots of different gods and famous humans represented, but the story isn't afraid to rewrite mythologies and histories to put its own spin on the combatants and give them unique powers. There are a lot of moments where the show goes, legends say this, but actually, the truth is this, which helps transition from familiar stories into the show's own lore. I will say I wasn't overly impressed with the show's writing for the first fight, but the next 2 were a lot more interesting. The second positive thing I have to say about Record of Ragnarok is that I really like the character designs. There are so many aesthetics mixing together, which I think fits extremely well with the theme of combining together multiple pantheons and all of humanity throughout history. And on top of that, the designs of the combatants shy away from traditional depictions of them. For example, Thor has waist-length hair and no beard, and his Mjolnir is massive. Zeus looks like Master Roshi and is just as perverted, well, that part's accurate to the mythology, and Hermes is Sebastian for some reason. I think the things I liked looking at most in the show were the crowds, however. In the stands, you can see so many different depictions of gods, from ancient Greek, Norse, and Egyptian to more modernly mythologized Lovecraftian beings. On the human side, you can see people from all countries and time periods represented, which truly makes it seem as if all of humanity is depending on this tournament. There are also lots of cameos of famous humans in the audience, like Michelangelo, Bach, and Musashi Miyamoto, to name a few. The third thing I like about Record of Ragnarok is the music and voice acting. It's got such talents as Hikaru Midorikawa, Miyuki Sawashiro, Tomokazu Seiki, and Kazuhiro Yamaji. All of the actors give very emphatic performances that complement the over-the-top nature of the show. The soundtrack is also very good, with unique music for every episode and fight. And the opening is by Maximum the Hormone, who you might recognize from the second Death Note opening. The last positive thing I want to highlight about Record of Ragnarok is its humor. There are a lot of funny scenes throughout, like Odin's ravens making snarky jokes like the old guys from the Muppets, or Hermes playing a rock version of Bach's Air on G-string, or Cain giving Abel a headlock in the audience. The wide variety of characters who interact with each other leads to a lot of opportunities for good jokes based on history and mythology. Now that the praise is out of the way, it's time to talk about Record of Ragnarok's flaws, which unfortunately drag the show down a lot. The biggest thing to talk about is obviously the animation, which ranges from One Punch Man Season 2 at its best to actual PowerPoint presentation at its worst. Even though this show is supposed to be all about fights, the action is made far less exciting by the fact that most of it is stills with shaky cam and movement lines. There are a lot of panning shots, copy-pasted CG, and other lazy-looking visuals that unfortunately pull your attention to how bad it looks rather than what's going on in the show. This is a shame because the character designs and background art are so good, and I think the show could have really been something special with an animation studio that's shown as it can do great fight scenes, like MAPPA, for example. As is, it just kind of feels like the show cut as many corners as possible with animation, and some of the best animated scenes in it aren't even the fights, which is strange. I can really understand why manga fans are disappointed, as I'm disappointed even coming into the show with no expectations. The second thing that's not great about Record of Ragnarok is the pacing, but I don't say that for the same reasons as other people. I actually don't mind the fact that we cut to character backstories with a lot of talking in the middle of fights, and I don't care that there's a lot of audience commentary in between every attack. I care that those things are actually far more entertaining and interesting than the fights themselves. I was way more engaged by the audience jokes and the unique twists on the characters' backstories than I was with any of the mediocre fight animation. The problem is that when fights consist of like 5 attacks total that have lazy animation, and the rest of the time is filled with people talking, and all that's spread out over the course of 3 to 4 episodes, it can feel like there are long periods where nothing exciting has happened. To the show's credit, the fights did get a bit more engaging over time, but I imagine many people probably dropped the show before it got to that point. Record of Ragnarok is not a good show, but it's also not as bad as many people are making it out to be. It's not something I would rewatch since the animation is really lackluster, but the character designs, humor, and plot did their job, which is to make me want to read the manga. In all, I'd give Record of Ragnarok a 5.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing for weekly content. I'm Matrix from Matrix AM, Anime, and more, and I hope you have a great day.